Hello, Blue Jays Nation. Welcome back to your absolute go-to destination for the fastest, most explosive Toronto Blue Jays coverage on the entire internet. If you're a true member of the Blue Army, if you bleed blue and white, if you live and breathe Toronto baseball, then you are in exactly the right place because we have got 3 absolutely massive updates that dropped just hours ago, and every single one of them could fundamentally reshape the future of this franchise. This isn't your typical off-season news dump, folks. We're talking about earth-shattering developments involving hundreds of millions of dollars in spending, blockbuster international signings that could change the farm system forever, crucial roster decisions that bring clarity to the 2026 lineup, and perhaps most explosively, a former Major League Baseball general manager who just went on national radio and absolutely torched the Blue Jays' biggest signing of the winter. That's right, someone with decades of front office experience just publicly questioned whether the Toronto Blue Jays made a catastrophic mistake by spending $60 million on Kazuma Okamoto, and the baseball world is absolutely losing its mind over these comments. Did the Blue Jays waste their money? Did they sign the wrong player? Should that $70 million have gone elsewhere? We're going to break down every angle of this controversy and let you decide for yourselves. But before we dive headfirst into the chaos, if you're new to this channel, do me a massive favor right now, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and turn on those notifications so you never miss a single piece of breaking Blue Jays news. This channel is built by real fans for real fans, and we're growing faster than ever because we bring you the news before anyone else with the kind of passion and analysis you won't find anywhere else. Alright, let's jump straight into update number 1. And trust me when I say this is going to blow your mind when you see the numbers we're about to reveal. Update number 1. Blue Jays quietly secure a no-doubt outfield weapon while their spending reaches absolutely insane levels. While the entire baseball world remains fixated on whether the Toronto Blue Jays can land superstar outfielder Kyle Tucker in what would be one of the biggest free agent signings in franchise history, something remarkable has been happening behind the scenes that tells you everything you need to know about how serious this organization is about winning championships. According to reports that surfaced just hours ago, the Toronto Blue Jays have now spent $337 million this offseason. Let me repeat that number so it really sinks in. $337 million. That's not just first place in all of Major League Baseball for off-season spending. That's $142 million more than the next closest team. To put that into perspective, that will absolutely blow your mind. 12 Major League Baseball teams will enter the 2026 season with an entire payroll lower than just the difference between what Toronto has spent and what the second-place spender has committed. Think about that for a second. There are a dozen teams whose entire roster, from their ace pitcher to their utility infielder to their backup catcher, costs less than the gap between Toronto's spending and everyone else's. This is ownership putting their money where their mouth is in the most dramatic way possible. This is Mark Shapiro and Ross Atkins telling the entire baseball world that the Toronto Blue Jays are not playing around anymore, that the window is open right now, and they're going to spend whatever it takes to build a championship roster. But here's the absolutely crucial part that should have every Blue Jays fan's heart racing with excitement. This front office is not done spending. CEO Mark Shapiro and General Manager Ross Atkins have reportedly increased their efforts to land superstar outfielder Kyle Tucker, one of the most dangerous left-handed bats still available on the free agent market. Kyle Tucker, folks, is an absolute monster of a player. We're talking about a 4-time All-Star who just turned 29 years old. Right in the prime of his career, with elite production on both sides of the ball. He can hit for average, he can hit for power. He plays Gold Glove caliber defense in the outfield. And he's exactly the kind of franchise cornerstone that teams dream about building around for the next decade. Tucker is expected to command over $400 million on the open market, and the competition is absolutely fierce. The New York Mets with Steve Cohen's bottomless pockets are circling. The Los Angeles Dodgers, fresh off back-to-back World Series championships, are sniffing around. This is going to come down to which team is willing to make the biggest commitment. And Toronto may have to decide very soon whether to push all their chips into the center of the table and go truly all-in. But while everyone in the baseball universe is focused on the Kyle Tucker sweepstakes, while reporters are tracking private planes and analyzing cryptic social media posts, the Toronto Blue Jays have been quietly lining up a future weapon at a tiny fraction of the cost. And this move could end up being just as important as any blockbuster free agent signing. On January 15th, when the international signing window officially opens for business, Toronto is expected to sign 17-year-old outfielder Michael Mesa, a 6', 195-pound left-handed hitter from Santo Domingo in the Dominican Republic. And if that city sounds familiar, it should, because Santo Domingo is the same place that produced absolute legends like David Ortiz and Juan Soto. Mesa is expected to sign for approximately $900,000 coming out of Toronto's $5.94 million international bonus pool, and Major League Baseball Pipeline currently ranks him number 30 among all international prospects in the incoming class. That might not sound like a top-tier ranking, but here's where it gets really interesting. Scouts are absolutely raving about this kid's potential. Evaluators are calling Mesa a no-doubt outfielder, meaning there's zero question about whether he can handle the position defensively at the highest level. He takes clean routes to fly balls, he makes loud contact at the plate, and he possesses what scouts describe as a whippy swing that could translate into serious extra base power as he continues to mature physically and add muscle to his frame. Some evaluators are going even further, suggesting that Mesa could end up being the best pure hitter in the entire 2026 international signing class. That's an absolutely massive statement to make about a player who's ranked 30th overall, but it speaks to the upside that scouts see when they watch this kid take batting practice and compete in games. This move mirrors Toronto's recent incredible success with international signings, particularly Juan Sanchez, who signed with the organization and then absolutely skyrocketed into the system's top prospects after just one season of professional baseball. If the Blue Jays can replicate that kind of development success with Michael Mesa, they'll have landed another potential impact player for less than $1 million. So Blue Jays fans, while the spotlight remains firmly fixed on the potential blockbuster Kyle Tucker decision that could come down any day now, don't overlook what's happening on the international front. The Blue Jays are building both for right now and for the future, and they're doing it with precision, with strategy, and with an eye towards sustained excellence rather than just one championship push. Now let's transition to update number 2, which involves some crucial roster decisions that bring clarity and stability to the 2026 lineup. Update number 2, Blue Jays lock in core pieces early as arbitration drama quietly ends. While fans were busy tracking blockbuster free agent rumors and refreshing their Twitter feeds every 30 seconds hoping for Kyle Tucker news, the Toronto Blue Jays just made a series of quiet but extremely important moves that solidify the foundation of next season's roster. Just hours ago, the Blue Jays officially avoided arbitration with 3 of their 4 eligible players, reaching one-year agreements before the deadline. And folks, this is a genuinely big win for clubhouse chemistry and organizational stability. Arbitration hearings can get contentious and ugly, with teams forced to argue that their own players aren't as good as those players think they are. That kind of adversarial process can damage relationships and create hard feelings that linger into the season. By getting these deals done early, Toronto avoided all that drama. The headline name here is absolutely Dalton Varsho, who agreed to a $10.75 million contract for 2026. That's one of the largest arbitration deals finalized league-wide during this entire cycle. And honestly, Blue Jays fans, this number makes complete sense when you look at everything Varsho brings to the table. Varsho's 2025 season was far from smooth sailing. Shoulder surgery delayed his debut and forced him to miss significant time early in the year. Then, just when he was getting back into rhythm, a hamstring injury struck and sidelined him again. But here's the remarkable thing. When Dalton Varsho was actually healthy and on the field, he was absolutely spectacular. In just 71 games, Varsho crushed 20 home runs, posted an .832 on-base plus slugging percentage, and looked stronger and more dangerous at the plate than ever before in his career. Think about that production extrapolated over a full 162-game season. We're talking about potential for 30-plus home runs. It's potential for elite offensive production from a player who also happens to be one of the best defensive outfielders in all of baseball. And that brings us to the defense, which might actually be Varsho's most valuable asset. Manager John Schneider has repeatedly, consistently, emphatically called Varsho the best defensive outfielder in baseball, and the eye test absolutely backs up that assertion. Gold Glove caliber defense. elite range that allows him to track down balls that other outfielders can't even dream of reaching, game-changing instincts that help him position himself perfectly on every single pitch. Varsho is a pillar of this team's identity on both sides of the ball, and now he enters a massive contract year season that could absolutely shape his long-term future in Toronto. If he stays healthy for a full season and produces at the level we know he's capable of, we could be looking at a player who earns himself a significant multi-year extension that keeps him in a Blue Jays uniform for the rest of his prime years. Next up is one of the most beloved stories in this entire organization. A player who went from minor league free agent to Canadian sports hero in the span of 2 years, Ernie Clement. Clement earned himself a raise to $4.6 million, and Blue Jays Nation knows he deserved every single cent of that money. After setting a Major League Baseball postseason record with 30 base hits during the 2025 playoff run, after batting an absolutely ridiculous 410 and driving in 9 crucial runs when the games mattered most, Ernie Clement became a Canadian sports hero literally overnight. His clutch hitting, his defensive versatility, his ability to come through in the biggest moments, all of it combined to create one of the most memorable postseason performances in franchise history. Add in his reliable defense at multiple positions and his steady regular season production, and Clement now looks poised to open the 2026 season as Toronto's everyday second baseman. That's a remarkable journey for a player who was signed as a minor league free agent just 2 years ago with no guarantees of even making the big league roster. Now he's a key piece of a championship caliber team and getting paid accordingly. The third agreement belongs to catcher Tyler Heineman, who agreed to a $1.2375 million deal for 2026, fresh off a career year where he provided valuable production in limited opportunities. Heineman gives Toronto experienced depth behind the plate while the organization continues developing its long-term catching prospects in the minor leagues. The only unresolved case is left-hander Yusei Kikuchi, who is now headed toward an arbitration hearing. Still, Kikuchi remains a key depth piece who's capable of impacting both the rotation and the bullpen depending on what the team needs from him in 2026. Bottom line, Blue Jays fans, these moves might not grab national headlines the way a Kyle Tucker signing would, but they accomplish something equally important. They lock in chemistry with players who were crucial to last year's success. They reward performance and clutch postseason heroics. And they set a stable foundation for another deep playoff push in 2026. Now we come to update number 3. And this is where things get absolutely explosive and controversial. Update number 3. Former general manager sparks absolute firestorm by publicly questioning whether the Blue Jays spent big on the wrong star. The Toronto Blue Jays' aggressive offseason has put them squarely at the center of the baseball universe. But not everyone believes every single dollar was spent the right way. And the criticism that just surfaced is coming from someone whose opinion carries genuine weight. Just hours ago, a former Major League Baseball general manager sent absolute shockwaves through the Blue Jays fanbase by publicly questioning Toronto's $70 million investment in Japanese star Kazuma Okamoto. The comments came from Jim Bowden, a former GM who's now an analyst on MLB Network Radio, and he didn't pull any punches or sugarcoat his opinion. Bowden openly stated on the air that while he likes Okamoto as a player and thinks he has genuine talent, he does not like the fit for Toronto. And that statement has ignited passionate debate across every corner of Blue Jays Nation, with fans splitting into camps defending the signing and others questioning whether Ross Atkins made a critical mistake. Let's establish some context here about what Kazuma Okamoto actually accomplished before coming to Toronto. He arrives in Canada after spending 11 seasons with the Yomiuri Giants in Japan, where he established himself as one of the most feared power hitters in Nippon professional baseball. His resume is legitimately impressive, folks. In his most recent season in Japan, Okamoto slashed .327 for batting average, .416 for on-base percentage, and .598 for slugging percentage while hitting 15 home runs despite missing half the season due to an elbow injury he suffered in a collision at first base. And that injury-shortened season was actually down production compared to his peak years, when he was consistently clearing 30 home runs and terrorizing pitchers across Japan. So Bowden's issue isn't with Okamoto's bat or his ability to produce offensively. The criticism is much more nuanced than that, and it centers on roster construction and opportunity cost. According to Bowden, the $70 million committed to Okamoto over 4 years could have been better used in other ways. He specifically mentioned that money could have gone toward keeping Bo Bichette, or putting together a more aggressive offer for superstar outfielder Kyle Tucker, or potentially both if the Blue Jays got creative with their financial structure. But the criticism doesn't stop there. Bowden also labeled Okamoto a below-average third baseman defensively, arguing that his best defensive position is actually first base, a spot that's firmly locked down by Vladimir Guerrero Jr. for the foreseeable future. Designated hitter duties are also largely spoken for, between Guerrero getting occasional DH days and other players needing rest. So where exactly does Okamoto fit optimally? There's been talk about moving Okamoto to the outfield to create more positional flexibility, but that raises its own set of questions when Toronto already has stronger defensive options, like Addison Barger, who can handle outfield duties. From Bowden's perspective, a team that was among the best defensive units in all of baseball last season may have just created an unnecessary weakness at third base by signing a player who's not a natural fit at the position. This is where Bowden's argument really gains some traction, because defense was absolutely one of Toronto's calling cards in 2025. They had elite defenders up the middle, they had outfielders who could cover ground, they had infielders who could make all the plays. Creating a defensive liability at third base, even if you're gaining offensive production, represents a potential step backward in an area where the team was already excellent. But here's the other side of the argument, and it's a compelling one that Blue Jays fans need to consider. Power was a massive need after the offseason departures and roster changes, and Okamoto brings exactly the kind of right-handed thump that this lineup desperately needed. From 2018 through 2023, Okamoto consistently cleared 30 home runs in Japan, and he was pacing toward that mark again in 2025 before his injury cut the season short. He now joins a lineup featuring Addison Barger, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Dalton Varsho, and George Springer, all of whom are capable of clearing 20-plus home runs in a full season. And if Anthony Santander can somehow rediscover even a portion of his monstrous 44 home run form from a few years ago, this offense has the potential to be absolutely electric and put up huge run totals on a nightly basis. Most importantly, and this is crucial for Blue Jays fans to understand, Okamoto's signing does not close the door on additional moves. Toronto still has financial flexibility to pursue Kyle Tucker aggressively. They can still revisit Bo Bichette scenarios if his market collapses and he becomes available on a shorter-term deal. They can reshuffle defensively with options like Andres Jimenez, whose elite glove gives the coaching staff multiple different alignment paths depending on matchups and situations. The Blue Jays aren't operating with a fixed budget where $70 million for Okamoto means they can't spend elsewhere. They've already demonstrated a willingness to spend $337 million this offseason, which is an absolutely staggering number that puts them in a completely different stratosphere than most organizations. If they want Kyle Tucker, they have the resources to go get him, regardless of the Okamoto commitment. So the real question isn't whether Okamoto was worth $70 million in a vacuum. The real question is whether he represents the best use of resources given all the other needs and opportunities the Blue Jays have to address. And that's where reasonable people can disagree without either side being objectively wrong. If you believe the Blue Jays needed right-handed power more than anything else, and you think Okamoto can provide 25 to 30 home runs while being adequate defensively at third base, then the signing makes perfect sense. You're addressing a clear need with a proven performer who has a long track record of success. But if you believe the Blue Jays should have prioritized keeping Bo Bichette or going even harder after Kyle Tucker, and you think the defensive downgrade at third base outweighs the offensive upgrade, then Bowden's criticism resonates, and you're questioning whether Ross Atkins allocated resources optimally. Here's my take, and I want to be clear that this is just one perspective among many valid viewpoints. The Okamoto signing will ultimately be judged based on what else the Blue Jays do this offseason. If they land Kyle Tucker and build a truly elite lineup with multiple power threats and championship-caliber depth, then Okamoto becomes a nice complementary piece and the $70 million looks like money well spent. But if they miss on Tucker, if they can't adequately replace the production they've lost elsewhere, if Okamoto struggles defensively and creates a liability that opponents exploit in the playoffs, then the criticism will intensify and people will rightfully question whether that money should have gone elsewhere. The beauty and the curse of these big free agent signings is that you can't evaluate them in isolation. You have to look at the entire roster construction, the alternative options that were available, The opportunity costs of committing resources to one player versus spreading them across multiple positions. It's complicated, it's nuanced, and it's exactly why front office jobs are so difficult. What we know for certain is this: Jim Bowden's criticism has touched a nerve because it raises legitimate questions about fit, about defensive alignment, about resource allocation. Blue Jays fans are now passionately debating whether their team made the right call. And that debate will continue throughout the season as we see how Okamoto actually performs in Toronto. But regardless of whether you agree with Bowden's assessment or think he's completely off base, one thing is absolutely undeniable: the Blue Jays are not done making moves. The next few weeks could completely redefine this roster. Kyle Tucker could sign and transform the entire outlook. Trades could happen that shuffle the defensive alignment. Free agents could be added that fill remaining holes. This offseason has been an absolute roller coaster of activity, with $337 million already committed and potentially hundreds of millions more on the way if Tucker joins the fold. Mark Shapiro and Ross Atkins are pushing all their chips toward the center of the table, betting everything on this championship window, and we're all along for the ride. And there you have it, Blue Jays Nation. 3 absolutely massive updates, all surfacing within just the last few hours. And every single one carrying serious implications for the future of this franchise. From quietly locking in a no-doubt international prospect who could be a star 5 years from now, to stabilizing the roster through key arbitration decisions that reward performance and maintain chemistry, to sparking league-wide debate over blockbuster spending and whether $70 million for Okamoto was the right move. One thing is crystal clear: the Toronto Blue Jays are going for it all. Now, I want to hear from every single one of you. Do you agree with Jim Bowden's criticism of the Okamoto signing, or do you think he's wrong and Toronto made the right call? Should the Blue Jays go absolutely all-in on Kyle Tucker, even if it means spending over $400 million? And which of these 3 updates excites you the most looking ahead to 2026? Drop your honest thoughts, passionate opinions, and bold predictions in the comments below. This channel is built by Blue Jays fans for Blue Jays fans, and your voice matters in shaping these conversations. Let's debate, let's discuss, let's celebrate this incredible offseason together. If you enjoyed this comprehensive breakdown of 3 massive Blue Jays updates, do me a huge favor and smash that like button right now. Subscribe to Toronto Blue Jays News Network if you haven't already. And turn on those notifications so you never miss breaking Blue Jays news. We're the fastest growing Blue Jays channel on YouTube, because we bring you the news first with the kind of passion and analysis that only true fans can provide. Share this video with your fellow members of Blue Jays Nation who need to know about the Okamoto controversy, the international signing, and the arbitration agreements. Leave a comment with your hottest take on any of these stories. And most importantly, stay locked in, because this offseason is far from over, and we've got so much more incredible content coming your way. The Blue Jays have spent $337 million and counting. They're pursuing Kyle Tucker. They're signing international prospects. They're locking in core pieces. And they're facing criticism from former executives who question their decisions. This is what championship-level ambition looks like, folks, and we're witnessing history in real time. Until next time, Blue Jays Nation, stay loud, stay loyal, stay passionate, and remember, this is our year. Go